for attending this presentation offered by Thesis and Dissertation Services in the Graduate and Professional School. This presentation will focus on the document submission, review, and graduation clearance process for master's thesis and doctoral students. What you will learn today. In the first half of the presentation, we'll look at the administrative aspect of the submission process. The latter half of the presentation will focus more on the document itself. In addition to grad school requirements, your individual academic programs have their own requirements. The general rule is that we set the minimum requirements and colleges, departments, and programs set specific requirements that can sometimes be more stringent. The graduate catalog is the official record of those specific program requirements. Dates and deadlines. Specific deadline dates vary with each semester. I'll define what each means, and you can apply them to the semester of your intended graduation. You can find calendars with corresponding deadlines for current and upcoming semesters on our website, grad.tamu.edu. Enter dates and deadlines in the search field or go to the Knowledge Center and choose Dates and Deadlines. The first day to submit. We start every semester by accepting new submissions, and all semesters overlap. For example, the first day to submit for the summer 2025 semester is April 21st during the spring semester. Students who submit this early are probably trying to make the early clearance deadline for the subsequent semester. If a student meets all the necessary requirements and entirely completes the review process prior to that deadline, they can potentially avoid the registration requirement for that semester. Students who don't meet the early clearance deadline will be required to register for a minimum of 1 credit hour during their graduation semester. The submission deadline. This is the last possible day to upload a PDF version of your document to etd.tamu.edu or Vireo. This deadline applies to your initial document submission. We will still accept corrections after the submission deadline has passed. The Vireo system will close at 5 p.m. on submission deadline day. In addition to your document submission, there are 2 other requirements you must complete by 5 p.m. on the submission deadline. One is your copyright and availability. The other is your document approval form. I'll talk more about those later. The graduation application deadline is the deadline to be cleared by TDS. To make this deadline, you have to have applied for graduation. This application deadline is usually about a week before the graduation deadline. The night before the first commencement ceremony, our office conducts degree audits. During that process, we determine who has met all the requirements and deadlines to be cleared for graduation and have their diplomas mailed to them after commencement. Though we like to clear as many students as possible by this deadline, missing it doesn't mean you have to miss commencement or won't graduate in your desired semester. If you haven't met the graduation deadline, your diploma will be withheld until you meet any outstanding requirements. The clearance deadline. After the commencement season is over, you have a couple of more weeks to finish any outstanding requirements and still be considered a graduate of that semester. For example, the fall 2024 semester final clearance deadline was January 17th, of 2025. ARCS. The Academic Requirements Completion System, or ARCS, is a communication tool between the Howdy portal and the Compass systems. It is accessed through the Howdy portal. You will request your CNA form and your document approval forms through ARCS. ARCS is structured in milestones, which must be completed before the next milestone can be achieved. Many people expect ARCS to store a copy of their document, but this is not the case. Vireo is the system which stores documents for review before their ultimate publication. ARCS cannot access Vireo. Vireo is a standalone system. Everything you see listed here is a necessary step for clearance, or meaning you have passed all the administrative hurdles to acquire your degree. I'm going to go into detail about every step listed here. First are the surveys. This is an ARCS milestone only for doctoral students. It must be passed to request a copyright and availability form. Doctoral students will be asked to complete these two surveys via a link on our website that takes you to both. These are national surveys that Texas A&M is just one participant in. Thesis and Dissertation Services does not manage the questions you're asked. We don't know what they are, nor do we see the responses you provide. The only thing we will ask you to provide is the certificate of completion that you receive after you submit the surveys. That link is on our website. The results of the surveys must be uploaded to ARCS before the copyright and availability form can be requested. The copyright and availability form helps manage the publication of your document after you have left the university. As a public institution, Texas A&M eventually publishes all theses and dissertations to its library's digital repository. This form establishes your copyright as author and allows you to dictate the availability of your document after you graduate. This is routed similarly to the approval form, but only you and your committee chair will sign it. This form must be signed by your chair before you can request the document approval form. At the top of the form is the copyright agreement, where you're asked to acknowledge and affirm your consent that this document will be published via Texas A&M's digital repository. Below that, the Acknowledgement of Content statement confirms that you have ensured the data and information in your document is accurate, and that once it has been published in the digital repository, you won't be able to make any changes to it. Your 3 availability options determining what kind of embargo you put on your manuscript are in the center. The first choice is an immediate release, meaning there is no restriction placed on the document, and shortly after you leave the university, it will be published in its entirety to the Texas A&M digital repository. The second availability option is a document-only hold, the most common option students select. In this option, certain information will be public in the digital repository. This includes what we commonly call the metadata: your name as the author, the title of the document, the entire abstract, and any other keywords you've associated with it. But otherwise, the entirety of your manuscript's content will be withheld from public view for the embargo period. The last option, the full record hold, is the least commonly chosen option and should be reserved for issues of patent or data ownership. A full record hold is a complete embargo wherein no information about you or your document will be made public. Document-only and full record holds last for an initial 2-year period based on your graduation date. However, you can contact us at any time to release it early. Conversely, you can submit an extension request form available on our website if you want the embargo to extend beyond the initial period. If you do select a document-only hold or a full record hold, we will ask you to provide a justification for why you selected that hold. One sentence will suffice, for example, for future publications, or I'm applying for a patent. While TDS must approve any document-only or full record hold, it is not necessary to obtain our approval before requesting the document approval form. This is not the same as copyright permissions. I do want to emphasize, so there is no confusion, the copyright and availability form is not the same as copyright permissions. They are similarly named, but they are two distinct requirements. Here again is the clearance checklist. We've talked about some of the things on it. Now we'll go to what is necessary for submission. The 4 items listed here are what we need for one of our editors to begin reviewing your document. Defense results are submitted by your department. You, as the student, do not encounter this form. This is one of the 2 required forms from your defense. The second is the written dissertation or thesis approval form. However, you cannot request this form until you have requested the copyright and availability or C&A form. Once the chair of your committee has approved the requested embargo on the C&A form, you can request the approval form. Like the C&A form, this is done in ARCs. This is typically not a process you can complete within a single day. Begin routing this form ASAP after your chair signs your copyright and availability form, which is preferably soon after scheduling your defense. Please do not wait until after you've held your defense or after you've submitted the document in Vireo. Give yourself a minimum of a week to get this completed in case there are any delays with workflow routing or the form gets stuck with a committee member or the department approver. The department approver is also required to sign the form, so it is best to keep your department graduate advisor aware of the process. So, your department submits your defense results, your chair signs your C&A form, and you submit your approval form. The last necessary item for us to begin your review is the document itself, which is submitted as a PDF through our online submission system for dissertations and theses, Vireo. Submitting through Vireo will probably take you anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes or longer. It's not a matter of simply uploading the document and logging out, so we recommend starting this much earlier than 4 p.m. on deadline day. You will be asked to fill out a variety of fields with your contact information, committee member information, document title, and semester of intended graduation. Some of your information might be auto-populated, since this is an A&M system, and you have to CAS authenticate into it, just like Howdy. Please review the auto-populated information for accuracy before moving on with your submission. One of the fields you'll be asked to complete in Vireo is an ORCID number. If you're not familiar with this, for all intents and purposes, it is an academic social security number that will uniquely identify you with all your publications and other research efforts. If you don't have one, the process to acquire one is very simple. Simply go to orchid.org to acquire one in minutes. This is a depiction of what will happen after you submit your document to our office. Once we confirm your approved defense results and signed approval form, you will be assigned a reviewer that you will maintain throughout the entire process. Their name and contact information will also appear in Vireo for any questions you may have throughout the process. Your reviewer reviews the document, generates a feedback report, and sends that report to you and your committee chair through Vireo. As a matter of courtesy, we copy the committee chair on every communication we have with their students, just so they're aware of your progress. There's usually no action required on their part. After you receive your corrections, it's up to you how quickly to respond. You'll review the requirements and corrections in the report, make whatever changes necessary to your original document, and then upload a new version of your thesis or dissertation back into Vireo. Every student will receive at least one round of corrections. Even if your document is pristine and requires no edits, we'll ask you to confirm what you provided is in fact what you want us to eventually publish. We attempt to be as thorough as possible during that first round of review and catch anything that needs to be taken care of. If a second round is required, this is usually more of a cleanup process, fixing anything that shifted or wasn't addressed during the first round. Most students don't require a third round of corrections. A question we're frequently asked is, how long can I expect to wait for my first round of feedback? It's a difficult question to answer because of the variables involved. If you submit your document early in the semester, you can typically expect to receive corrections in 5 to 10 business days. The closer you get to the submission deadline, the longer you can expect to wait. Within 2 weeks of deadline day, it could take 3 to 4 weeks. If you submit on deadline day, it may take 4 to 6 weeks. As a matter of perspective, we receive 400 to 500 documents most semesters. On average, 60 to 65% of those submissions come the week of deadline day. Those students usually have the longest wait time as we go through our submissions one by one and review them in the order received. Submitting earlier than deadline week or deadline day can decrease the time you spend waiting for feedback. As I mentioned, every student will receive at least one round of corrections. These are 4 standard review comments students receive on that first review, whether they apply or not. The list of figures and tables. It is your responsibility to make sure that the captions and page numbers are accurate. This comment will ask you to confirm that you have done this. Once you've confirmed it's accurate, we'll move on. Use of figures and tables. During your submission process, Vireo prompts you to answer whether anything in your document has been previously published. If you indicate no, we'll take you at your word and review the document as such. If you indicate yes, you'll then be prompted to identify what has been previously published, whether that's a previously written journal article or figure you've taken from a conference paper or a textbook. This applies to both text and tables and figures. If you indicate any part of the work has been previously published, we will ask for your copyright permissions. Even if you are the author or creator of that work, chances are you'll still need copyright permissions. Most academic publishers allow the author to retain copyright, but that's not true across the board. Author-publisher-user agreements usually state that, legally, authors must request permission for reuse. We at TDS cannot tell you definitively whether you need copyright permissions, although we can help guide you to some resources that may provide answers. For example, many publishers will have a statement on their website saying that the material can be reused for an academic purpose. Last, the references. Once again, this comment will ask you to confirm that what you've provided is in fact accurate and that all references are retrievable. If you indicate that any portion of your document has been published, you do have to acquire copyright permissions from the publisher, even if you are the sole author of that work. This excludes Creative Commons or any other public domain material. If what you're reprinting falls under those classifications, no copyright permissions are needed. A lot of user agreements between students and publishers will indicate that you can use the work for your dissertation or that the author retains copyright. If this is the case, you just need to properly cite the source in your document where the reprinted material first appears. If you say that you don't need copyright permissions, we will take you at your word. You are responsible for the contents of your document, with the understanding that if there's a copyright violation, you as the author will also be responsible. Your committee chair is probably going to be the best source of information regarding copyright permissions. To apply to graduate, this is how you indicate to the university that you are going to end your academic pursuit here. This application is through the Howdy portal and the registrar's office. Please consult dates and deadlines for the last day to make application for graduation. TDS will not clear any student who has not applied for graduation. It's necessary to contact students well after their graduation date. A permanent, non-TAMU email allows this. As mentioned earlier, if you don't meet the early clearance deadline, then you are required to register for a minimum of 1 credit hour. At this point, we're going to transition from the administrative aspect of the process to formatting the document itself. The first thing I'll recommend is that you become familiar with the Thesis and Dissertation Guidelines on our website. It's a 12-page document that not only provides information about the submission process, but also gives visual examples of how certain pages should look. Becoming familiar with that is a good place to start. We also have various templates to choose from, depending on your experience level. The basic Microsoft Word template is very structured. If you're not comfortable or familiar with the customization or behind-the-scenes aspects of Microsoft Word, the basic template is designed to reduce errors that you as the author can introduce into that document. If you're more familiar with Microsoft Word and comfortable with the customizations it provides, the recommended templates will allow you a little more freedom and control over what you want to change. We suggest you gauge your own familiarity with Microsoft Word and choose the template you think fits best. Unfortunately, no one in the TDS office is an expert in Microsoft Word, and we will not be able to help you with any of the fine points of formatting in terms of the usage of that tool. We also have a LaTeX Thesis and Dissertation template hosted via Overleaf. Currently, Texas A&M has a partnership with Overleaf that provides some technical support for the LaTeX template. If you go to the site seen here on the slide and register with your Texas A&M email address, you can access an Overleaf professional account for free. It's also built to be a collaboration tool, so you're not having to email a document back and forth. Those you're working with can log in and see what you're doing. We have a lot of students, particularly those in STEM fields, who are writing highly technical documents, who find this template useful. It produces beautifully formatted documents. But if you are not already familiar with LaTeX, we don't suggest starting to learn as you're beginning to write your major research project. A typical document will follow this layout: preliminary pages, main text, then your references. Appendices are optional. You have two choices for reference formatting. You can have a distinct reference section for each chapter or section, or you can include one comprehensive references list at the end of the document. If you have written journal articles or conference papers that you want to include in your dissertation, that is perfectly acceptable. However, because your dissertation is a uniquely written academic work, we will ask for a uniquely written introduction and summary or conclusion to that document. Chapter or section 1 should be titled Introduction. The number of articles that you put in your dissertation is up to you and your committee chair. We will not limit the number you can include. The templates will default to a 12-point Times New Roman font. You are free to choose another font, providing it adheres to a scholarly type style like Arial or Courier. Use your best judgment. The main text will be double-spaced. Margins should be minimum of 1 inch, with page numbers placed at the bottom center of the document. Page numbers. The title page should not have a page number. The first preliminary page of the document, the abstract, should be numbered with lowercase Roman numeral 2. You will maintain Roman numeral lowercase page numbering throughout the rest of the preliminary pages. Once chapter 1 or section 1 begins, you'll restart that page numbering sequence again at the beginning, but this time with Arabic numeral 1. You'll continue with Arabic numerals throughout the rest of the document, including appendices. Major headings. The title of the document and all major headings throughout the document will be placed in all capital letters, center justified, double-spaced if it's more than one line. You can use bold text for your headings if you use it for all of them. For this element of the document only, the main title and major headings, you can increase the font size to 14 points if you would like. The document title will appear at the top of this page in all capital letters, center justified, and double-spaced. Below that, you'll indicate the type of document you are writing, dissertation, thesis, or record of study. That will be followed by your name, which must match official university records. Typically, that is whatever name you used to apply to the university. So, for example, if you spelled out your whole middle name in your application, or if you only provided a middle initial, you need to replicate that on your title page. The submission statement in the middle of the example title page is inaccurate in one respect. We are no longer the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies. We are now the Graduate and Professional School. Current templates are updated to reflect this. Next will appear the type of degree that you are earning: Master of Arts, Master of Science, Doctor of Philosophy, etc. Next, you'll list your committee members and department head. This list is the only element of the title page that is left justified. It is also single-spaced. As you see in the example, do not put doctor in front of or PhD after any of the names. Below that, indicate the year and month that you're graduating. Spring students in May, summer students in August, fall students in December. Below that, write the major subject in which you're earning your degree, and lastly, the copyright statement with your name, as you will retain the copyright of your document. These last three elements should each be separated by 2 double spaces. We highly prefer abstracts that are single pages. Our firm limit for abstracts is about a page and a half. Contributors and funding sources is a required single preliminary page of the document with 2 distinct sections: contributors, which should be limited to individuals who had some participation in the completion of your degree; committee members, lab partners, co-authors, and anybody else who participated in the completion of your document in your degree. The second section of this page is funding sources. This is where you will list grants, scholarships, fellowships, assistantships, and any other monetary source that helped you complete your degree. If you paid for your degree entirely out of pocket and did not have any assistance, you still need to include this section with a brief sentence that says, "No outside funding was provided." Nomenclature lists are optional. You don't have to include one, but if you do, you can place that either in the preliminary pages or at the end as an appendix. There is no minimum or maximum length. The table of contents is a required preliminary page. It's a good idea to wait until the very end of your writing process to start working on the table of contents. Make sure you have everything where you want it to be and save the table of contents for last. If you make any adjustment to the main text after finalizing the table of contents, it will affect the spacing of everything that comes after it, potentially changing where a subheading appears, where a particular figure starts or ends, etc. If you're using a template, those are built to generate your table of contents for you. There are instructions provided within the template, so you should not have to create these from scratch. Major headings should appear in the table of contents in all capital letters, 12-point font, no bold, all caps. Please leave a double space between each major heading and single space between subheadings. Only the first level of subheadings is required to appear in the table of contents. If you have second, third, or fourth level subheadings, you can include them if you'd like, but that's not required. Table of Contents specifications. Leader dots should be generated by the template. Other than making sure the page numbers that appear here match the actual text, please try to keep that page number column as clear as possible. If you have a lengthy section title, use your best judgment to try and find a place to break and move that to the second line so the reader doesn't get the page number confused with part of the title or section. List of figures and tables. These are two distinct lists. The same rules apply here as apply to the table of contents. These lists should be double-spaced between each element and single-spaced within the elements themselves. No bold text, leader dots between the captions and page number column, and of course, page numbers should be accurate. Try to keep the page number column as clear of text as possible. Occasionally, students will have lengthy captions for their figures. If so, you can include the entire caption here, or if you have any punctuation at all in your caption, you can abbreviate for simplicity and include everything in the caption only up to the first punctuation mark. Subheadings. Generally, there are two ways you can format these. If you number them, you won't have to change the font style. They will all be left justified, capitalizing the first letter of each word, which is title case, just as you see here in the example. Here, the numbering takes care of identifying the subheading level. If you are not numbering your subheadings, then you do need to change the font style because your reader needs some way to identify which subheading level we're currently reading. What you see on the slide is only meant to be a visual example. You do not have to adhere to the style seen here. There are examples of what an embedded subheading looks like, both in the guidelines and in the templates. You cannot have a second level subheading without a first level subheading. This is an easy mistake to make. If you're not numbering your subheadings. If this is the case for you, please remember our cardinal rule, consistency. Once you establish a format for subheadings, make sure you stick to it and don't skip any levels. Don't ask me why this happens, but it does. When you convert your document from Microsoft Word to a PDF, things will shift, and it is incredibly frustrating. I have not figured out how to overcome that, but it will happen. So, after you've made that file conversion, look through the document to make sure nothing has shifted. If you see a subheading at the bottom of a page without any text under it, you'll have to address that. Subheadings must have at least some of their accompanying text on the same page. When placing figures and tables within your document, use your best judgment for spacing. We won't go through your document with a ruler to ensure you've always used 3 single spaces or 2 double spaces. This is just to give you an idea of how to handle this. You want to give yourself a buffer of white space above and below figures so the caption doesn't bleed into the paragraph below, and any labels you have for the figure don't bleed into the paragraph above. Some students, instead of trying to squeeze figures in between paragraphs of text, place a figure on a page by itself and continue typing text on the page after that. This accomplishes 2 things. 1, it's much easier to format since you don't have to worry about formatting text around it. And 2, from a reader's perspective, you can make that image a lot bigger and easier to see and understand. 2 notes. Numbering. Either numbers figures and tables sequentially throughout the document or sectionally. Margins. Please keep in mind that tables and figures both must adhere to the margins that the text is adhering to. If you have a table that extends for multiple pages, re-establish the table title with continued added onto it for any additional page, and reestablish its column and row headings. By reestablishing column and row headings, you're helping future readers identify what data you're representing without having to flip back and forth to see what they're looking at. References can either be divided by each chapter or section or placed at the end of the document. We're not going to enforce a specific format on your references. You can number them sequentially or arrange them alphabetically by first author's last name. Like the table of contents, we ask that references are double-spaced between each entry and single-spaced within the entry itself. If you run into formatting issues with the spacing, it's also okay to double space the whole reference section. If you include appendices, we'll ask you to maintain consistency in 3 areas: margins, major headings, and page numbers. We also ask that you not use a font size smaller than 7 points. Before we close, I want you to be aware of other community and writing resources outside our office. The University Writing Center holds a dissertation writing retreat, usually the first week before each semester begins. Someone from Thesis and Dissertation Services frequently participates in these to answer any questions about the submission process and document formatting. We only focus on your document's format. The Writing Center is uniquely equipped to help you with content edits like spelling and punctuation. Doctoral Net is a resource provided by the Professional Development Office here in the Graduate and Professional School. It's a collaborative community that you can join to talk to other doctoral students both in and outside of your program and share your experiences. We encourage you to take advantage of these opportunities. Thank you for joining us. We practice what we preach and acquired permission to use the photos seen here. They are all available in the A&M Photograph Repository. Thank you for attending this presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email at thesis@tamu.edu.